All right, everybody, here we go. It's time to address piloting. Or is it time to address piloting? Does this do it? The devs just released a mail. I'm going to give you a quick summary of it. Then we're going to talk about what is the piloting problem. Then we're going to talk about some of the perspectives around it. Okay. Then we're going to see if like this addresses it or not. And we'll talk a little bit about what would need to happen to actually meaningfully tackle piloting. All right. So let's start with big picture. What are they doing? You can only have War Frenzy for 16 out of 24 hours. Now, 99.9% of governors hear that and they're like, okay, that doesn't affect me at all. I go to sleep at night. Sometimes I like eat dinner and I stop playing for a second. This doesn't affect me. Not in KVK, not in Kingsland, not at all. Bunch of governors. Now, more serious governors are probably very offended. And they're like, I play a lot and for sure it's just me on the account. Okay, buddy. Sure it is. But let's talk about what the piloting problem is. Because I think there's a couple aspects of the problem. One is the player experience. And that player experience comes in the form of pressure. The other is the feeling that you're up against a bunch of paid actors. And I have been in KVK up against a bunch of paid actors where all 600 of the enemy accounts that are logged for the KVK and registered are online theoretically simultaneously with paid actors or actual players, okay? And that is it feels offensive to fight that. And the genesis of all of this is that the developers correctly constrained the amount of migration of players into kingdoms. I think they should have constrained way more than they did, such that there weren't these super imperiums where it's really hard to find matches against peers because they don't exist. Separate topic. I've covered matchmaking, which is a very real problem affecting real governors, in a separate video, okay? Several separate videos, okay? So let's not deny the reality of the matchmaking conundrums and the fact that it does deeply harm and destroy, in my opinion, big kingdoms. Separate topic. What we're talking about here is the pressure of piloting. So when those biggest, most meta kingdoms realized they couldn't bring more players in, the only way to get stronger is to have the players you have be online more. Now, gamers game, and gamers push the edges of systems. This is what gamers will always do. They will always push the bounds of what can be done. And they will even go as far as to exploit or whatever to the bounds of what the rules will allow, and they'll break those rules until a dev reins them in. And one of the things that, again, players realized is, well, if we can't get more players into the kingdom, we got to get more accounts online. And we got to have more accounts online for more of the time. In fact, we have all these farms that are registered to fill garrisons. Why don't we have them all be online simultaneously too, so that you don't have to play your main account. You can be field fighting with it and filling. Someone can be playing on your farm and fill your farm at the same time. And by the way, what if, every alt is online at the same time? And, even if they're just running around hitting the enemy's farm filling marches with a Belisarius Prime, it's savage and effective, and we'll do that with weak accounts. And this list goes on and on and on, where like now, if you want to push the bounds, you have all accounts online all the time. Okay. Now, this creates a really weird pressure, especially if you're fighting a kingdom like that. And on multiple occasions, I have seen kings, I have seen R4s. This is no disrespect to them. In fact, they're just doing what they need to do. Players are correct to be doing this. I just want to be really clear that I hope that none of the people that I played with and enjoyed playing with in the past that did this feel like I'm judging them in any way. No, they were correct to run around and say, like, everybody's got to give me their account keys. We got to get some random schmuck on your account as fast as we can. Whore out your account right now. We got to go, go, go. Everybody online. Go, go, go. Like, the demand to whore out your account to some stranger on the internet for your kingdom is super real. If you want to be meta, you either found a team or you paid a team, or you're going to be asked to give up and surrender your account details to some other stranger on the internet to play your account. Because that's how competitive it is at the top end. That is how competitive. By the constraints of the game, that is the natural state for players to pursue. Because players always push the edges. So the developers change the edges. They say, okay, fine. You can't have your account online for 24 hours straight slamming. Now you can only have your account online slamming for 16 hours. So this is only going to be Pioneer tested starting 10/27. It's going to be in certain KVKs. And this is going to be when your War Frenzy time reaches 16 hours, your character will in a rest mode for 8. While in rest mode, you cannot activate War Frenzy. You can't attack, scout, or initiate rallies against other governor's troops or buildings. You will not be able to use the attack march command. Your troops cannot enter range mode. You will not automatically attack. You will still be able to attack barbarians, gather resources, and join rallies. Potentially, does that mean you can join a rally against a flag or a fort? Doesn't that give you War Frenzy? After exiting rest mode, your character's total War Frenzy time will be reset. If you do not activate War Frenzy for 8 hours straight, your total Frenzy time for the last 24 hours will be cleared. So the developers have changed the bounds, all right, where they say, F it. All right, fine. Instead of 24 hours, now it's 16. Now, this has zero impact on the overwhelming majority of players that play this game. The only people you're going to hear cry about this are the top-end players who spend the most and pilot the most. And who, despite what people may say about how much they play, they've got pilots. They do, okay? No matter how much someone demands and insists that it's just them on their account, it isn't. They've got pilots, okay? Especially the more they play, the more true that is, all right? And I actually have several perspectives on this, actually. And, you know, look, if you're subscribed to my channel, and I hope that you are, for the sake of, like, not only getting value in game, but you're interested in a little bit of, like, the things that I share about how to improve yourself as a person, right? And how to get better, and the ways that I'm leveling up. Like, my goal is to level you up, actually, okay? And in a worst case, it's game stuff that I'm leveling you up with, which I really enjoy. But a best case is that I'm leveling you up with real life stuff. So let me level you up for just a second. Maybe it's your call. You decide what to make of this information with some real life stuff. Okay. And I'm going to tell you about a guy who is a tech, I think, billionaire, who basically exited from a startup, made all this money, and said, you know what? I don't want to die. I want to live forever. His name's Brian Johnson. You can look him up. This is like a real person who spends, at this point, what, tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars, probably tens of millions of dollars, figuring out how to scientifically, demonstrably reduce the effective age of his body and live forever. And according to him, okay, this is crazy, but according to him, the single most powerful drug that you can provide to your body, more powerful than any substance, more powerful than literally anything on the face of the earth that has ever existed, is actually just to get good sleep. He said there is no replacement. So this is a guy who is tested in his own body every single scientifically demonstrable substance on the face of the earth that he can get his hands on to see if it has a positive impact. And he's like, yeah, actually sleep is the single most important thing. So as someone who just is coming off of a cancer diagnosis, and, like, knock on wood, that, like, I have the all clear now, but we still have to remove a lot more moles and we don't know what that's going to look like over the next few years. But fucking, I'm not giving up my sleep for anything. For anything, nothing I will only to save the life of my family, right? Am I sacrificing sleep at this point? So a rest mode of 8 hours, that doesn't affect me one goddamn bit, because you should be sleeping. Now, I don't like when someone tells you what you should or shouldn't do with your time. Like, if somebody wants to fuck up their body and not sleep, then, like, that's their prerogative, in my opinion. So, you know, this rest mode thing, saying that, hey, like, you can't fight anymore, is a little weird. Although I will also add, like, I personally get deeply offended when games create situations that force you to be unhealthy to be meta, right? That really offends me at a very personal level, because it's so disrespectful to the players. So in a way, you could look at this and say, so the devs are actually unironically saying this was an unhealthy situation. Now you can sleep without being the enemy of a meta kingdom's king who's like, everybody on now, always. And they're correct for doing that. They have to. They literally, you do that or you lose. These are the choices. So you can't be a big kingdom and not do that. Is this a good solution or not? And this definitely does not attack the problem at all of having pilots. It simply changes the bar for how much piloting you need if you play in the top end. Okay? So, you know, you might play for 8 hours and then you'd have to pilot 8 hours. It be what it be. It is what it is, right? This is the new boundary limit that the devs have set up, And, does this kill the game? Okay, so it depends on who you ask. I think if you talk to Omniarch, right, whose opinion I respect very much, he would say that piloting has already been killing the game. And I don't know if it's killing the game or not, but I certainly can say that the single most frustrating experience, well, I guess one of them, is when you're up against a bunch of paid actors. It's like, why the fuck am I here at times? Because it's like, their farms are paid and piloted. Their alts are paid and piloted. Their mains are paid and piloted. And it's like, why am I, what are we doing here? I'm making real sacrifices from my life. Because that was a part of it, is you sacrifice, and you commit. And they're not. They're not. And to Omniarch's point, I think a lot of people, when confronted with the reality of I have to hire a staff or find friends, but the idea that you have to hire staff to have your account online, that crosses a line, I think, for a lot of people where it's wait, is this a game for me anymore? Or what is this? What is this? Okay. And I play a lot of different games, and I play a lot of those games simultaneously. And I will say this, in some games, I have had to pilot in some times. And it just is what it is. I mean, especially recently, I got hit with cancer, and it's I'm going to need some piloting for some games for some of the time. And what if I want to go on vacation? What if I want to go on vacation? You can't just lose value. You get fucked if you lose that kind of value. The games are designed to have all these quests and things and value, free to play stuff. That's it's pretty expensive. So the cost of hiring a pilot from the perspective of I want to go on vacation is almost certainly going to be cheaper than, or you find a friend, right? Than the loss of value of all the stuff. If you start to think about I want all this free to play earnable stuff, or I could buy bundles. Well, actually paying somebody is cheaper than what it would cost to buy all of it in a bundle. But the moment you have to start thinking about a game like that, it just gets really, really weird. It for me personally, rips me out of the immersion of the game. And I struggle with that. I like to also log into games when I'm on vacation, which is, it is. I'm sure my family loves that. Or I just do less and I just lose out on stuff. That's what I end up doing, is I end up just losing out on stuff often. But I think this ends up being a change that the biggest spenders will complain about a lot. I think this ends up being a change that the overwhelming majority of players are not harmed in any way by this. In fact, if you are not aggressively piloting, this is all upside for you. If you are up piloting and you were just playing your account, congratulations, you now can sleep if you want, without being considered a schmuck for your kingdom. And the funny thing is that there still are times, by the way, in this, in the 16-hour window where you're not going to have frenzy. You're going to be standing around, because if you watched my streams, there's at times a lot of standing around. War frenzy falls off. So you definitely can play for more probably 18 hours realistically before you get hit with I don't know what the percentage of time is that I'm online and I'm frenzied up, but if I'm on for 16 hours in a KVK, 16 hours of time is not, it's not frenzy time. If I'm on for 16, all 16 are not frenzy time. There's no way. I don't think so. Only in the most intense fighting, right? So before anybody gets confused about my perspective, right? If somebody wants to be a degen and not sleep, I feel like they ought to be able to do it, even though they're fucking themselves up and it's a bad choice. If someone wants to make a stupid choice, then they can make a stupid choice. But I think the reasons the devs go this route is we got to put bounds on this thing. We gotta limit the extent to which it's going on. And again, as someone who has been up against a whole, team of paid actors, Like, it does not feel good to know you're fighting against a team of paid actors. It really does not. How do you solve piloting? I think is a way, way deeper question, depending on how you want to slice it. Could be, simply limiting the number of devices a player can have, but there's ways around that. But it is tackleable. There's plenty of games for which someone else logs onto your account and you get banned. Right? Like, just straight up, like, see you later. So without going, I guess, too deep into the solution, where do I land on this change? No matter what I say, I'm going to piss a bunch of people off. If I say it's good, I'm going to piss a shitload of people off. If I say it's bad, I'm going to piss a shitload of people off. So I'll only speak to how this is for me personally, without assessing how it is for everybody. So you make your judgments for yourself. For me personally, as someone who actually wants to sleep at night, because it is the most powerful super drug you can provide to yourself, is getting sleep. For someone who is not trying to pilot my account more than an airport, or at all, who wants to be the only person logging onto my account, this change is good. For me personally, this has zero negative impact on me at all, and only limits the extent to which other players can take advantage of paid piloting and, friend piloting in a way that I cannot, right? Like, to my knowledge, like, all of the creators that want to have a relationship with the makers of the game are not supposed to be doing piloting. I could definitely be wrong about that, but I know that was absolutely the case at one point in time. With all these piloting mails coming out, I don't know what the case is. I think it's the same. But, like, as someone who's not supposed to have piloting relationships with anybody, like, anything that limits piloting is obviously going to be upside, because, like, I'm not supposed to be doing any of that. So, yeah. For me personally, this is upside. All upside. But how is it for you? You let me know down below in the comments. When Omniarch chimes in, and I bet he will, I'll pin that one. But I think, like, this doesn't in any way actually address piloting at all. Just to be, like, really clear. It just limits the bounds to which piloting impacts the outcome. And it doesn't change your ability to pilot a farm, which is not going to have frenzy for 16 hours consecutively anyways, right? Like, it doesn't change some of the things that kingdoms still do to get huge, massive, absolutely life-changing levels of advantage. You don't think that's a life-changing level of advantage to have your whole main team fielding without the distraction of filling with farms? Okay. Whatever you say, right? I think it's life-changing levels of advantage, which is why they do it, right? It's why they do it. It's that good to have somebody else on all your farms, so all your mains can be full slamming with full troops, right? It's a big deal. So that's kind of where my head's at. For me personally, this doesn't address piloting. It just changes the extent to which players would need to pilot if they want to be meta, and reduces the extent to which the opponents they may be up against can be piloting, which reduces to some extent the feel bad of feeling like I'm losing to a bunch of paid actors. And, like, the difference between a W and an L is how much staff I've hired, not how good I am at the game. Yeah. Whoa. So just to be really clear, I do really enjoy Rise of Kingdoms, okay? And, like, for me, this is actually just a W, personally. Just me personally, okay? This is a W. And when we talk about limitations here, Call of Dragons solved this problem with what I think is a far more elegant solution, where they basically have stamina on each of your commanders. And so you can only fight for so long before your stamina on your commanders gets tapped out and it passively regenerates. There's so many heroes in that game that stamina is rarely a problem. You just find some other hero to run out of your city. And you actually have to play skillfully instead of just, like, send your troops like a bozo into the ball, send, right? Like, the level of skill is way higher. So, like, if you wanted a skill game, like, it's made by the same family of companies. And like very much elevates the level of skill, because literally you are limited to the number of times you can go out of your city. I think it's a far more elegant system. But I also don't think necessarily that adding more skill to Rise of Kingdoms is per se the right play, which might sound weird, except like you don't want to change the audience of your game this far in, I think, right? Like your audience for your game is who it is. And like the whole game is like right click is move and attack. And like, it's not any more complicated than that. I don't think it should necessarily get more complicated than that. So I'm not saying they need to make Rise of Kingdoms a higher skill game, but yeah, I don't know. Leave your thoughts down below in the comments. That's enough ramble out of me. You enjoyed this one, throw a like on here, subscribe. In the middle of all of this, I mentioned the cancer stuff. If you want to go see the update for that, I'll have a card in the end screen. I have some really funny thoughts on how many views that one got versus the first vid that I did about it. It's like people really care about the spectacle of the diagnosis, but less about how it's going, which is like really weird. But if you want to see that one, you can go check it out. It's kind of wild. And if you want to see the last time I talked about either piloting or matchmaking, because those are real problems affecting real kingdoms in real ways. I'll have that one over here. All right. So I like that the devs are looking at this. I like that they put a bound. For me personally, this is a W, but I know it's not a W for everybody. So you just let me know your thoughts in the comments. W, L, drop a comment.